training solutions and information to higher ed institutions and related institutions. It is now at work trying to identify case studies and strategies where IT has become a money-generating part of the university. Previously, what we've done focusing on our programs has been much, much more operational, looking at existing technologies, new technologies, things like augmented reality and how they're being implemented on campus. And while we're going to continue to look at those kinds of things, we thought it was important to also back up, go a little higher to the 2,000, 3,000 foot level and sort of look at technology in that sense with the university and thus the program today. So let me quickly roll across the room. I'm going to introduce our panelists. Let me start over here with Isabella and come this way because Nuno will not only note himself but also who's online. So Isabella, tell us your name and where you're from.
Okay, Isabel, I'm from FTR Ophthalmics. My interest, first of all, to have the group in marketing, volunteering for that. And second of all, we are going to organize a FTR school with emerita surgeons teaching younger surgeons. So this kind of technology is going to be maybe involved in the near future.
James is our host.
Hi, James Stoffel here, representing Shoah Boston Institute, Director of Technology here. So I'm here as part of the Meetup group. Enjoy the different scenarios that we try to drum up for conversation, and I'm very forward to hearing what you have to say. So.
And I'm Tom Goldrick. I'm a consultant working for Optimal Partners. I'm here to film the event. I'm also part of the organizational team.
I am Mike Burke from Boston College, where I'm the CIO, and I'm a long-term partner of Nuno's for, 15 years now with Optimal Partners, I think.
Almost. My name is Drew Friedman. I'm with a company called Burning Glass Technology, and I've been working with higher education institutions for about 15 years, helping to embrace and foster the use of technology. I think every state on the East Coast, I've been almost like 10 in this type of work, and I'm here to learn how CFOs and CIOs are working together, and now with the revenue generating model, right? How can we help schools offset the funds that aren't coming anymore? You don't look like they're going to come after the 2008 recession. It seems everyone else got the money back except higher education. So.
Stephen McDevitt, CIO at St. Anselm College, just recently joined there. Was the CIO at Mount Ida College, which is no longer.
Bobby Springle, I'm at Boston University, head of medical campus IT, and also shared infrastructure for the university as a whole.
Michael Ginsberg, I'm the former dean at the business school at WPI, as well as several other places, and a very long-term IT faculty member.
Yeah. Tell them who you are.
Yeah.
You want to tell us who's online?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got Tim from Purdue Northwest, we've got Mary Beth from WPI, Chuck from Duquesne, Sherry from Campbell, and Lehigh from Connecticut. And have I missed anyone? Has anyone else joined since we started?
Daniel Aracena from Peaches College, Columbia University, CIO.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to those of you who are online. Hopefully you're as warm as we are inside here, and outside it is chilly. Let me give you a little bit of perspective here. Historically, college IT units have been characterized as cost centers. We know that, performing an increasingly critical function for the college's educational and administrative mission, but representing an increasingly expensive part of the budget. IT services across campus have become more expensive as faculty members, administrators, and students have demanded access to the latest hardware and software, and budgets have been taxed to keep up. At the same time, many U.S. colleges and universities face increasingly severe problems that threatens their ability to survive. Mount Ida, an example there. This morning's Boston Globe had an interesting article pretty much saying that every school in Vermont is challenged. Overall, the cost of delivering a college education is rising, and the price charged for that education is increasingly seen by the public as being exorbitant and out of control. Demographic changes, the declining number of 18-year-olds, and decreased interest by international students, the challenge has become a crisis in many respects. Recently, we've seen an alarming number of institutions look at closing or merging. College IT units have become increasingly sophisticated, however, as they've developed the capacity to be more than a technological heat sink. IT units have the capacity to initiate projects that increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the university in dealing with the issues of student success. Additionally, IT units have opportunities to develop projects that can increase the revenue base of the college. And these opportunities are clearly move the IT unit from a cost center to a strategic revenue center. Now, obviously, big universities have lots of opportunities to do things, but we think the opportunities are also there for small college IT units to implement similar strategies. But shifting the focus from a cost center to a revenue center requires a close partnership between CIOs and CFOs. And this event is to explore those partnerships. And to that end, we've invited CIOs and CFOs to talk about their partnership philosophy and to share examples of projects that have shifted the focus of their IT units. We've introduced in our materials a lot of information about the individuals, but let me give you just a real quick synopsis on the three individuals who are here. We're going to start with some fixed questions. I'm going to moderate a discussion there, and then we're going to roll to questions from the audience, and we will ask those of you online and give you a chance to input as well. On my far right is Debra Gelch. She's the CIO at Curry College. She has 17 years of experience at the CIO at colleges such as LaSalle and Pine Manor. Ray Lefebvre, to my immediate right, is the CIO at Bridgewater State. Previously, he served as CIO at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. Director.
I love it.
And Doug Shropshire is CFO at Bridgewater State University, previously at Plymouth Plantation and Derby Academy. Welcome to you. So, question number one, and Debra, I'm going to pitch this to you, is in a recent article by Deloitte on how CIOs and CFOs can collaborate. 3 steps they mentioned to establish mutual trust and understanding were to understand business terms and develop an understanding of technology for CFOs, to set IT goals together, and to collaborate regularly. Can you give us some examples of what you've done to set up that kind of relationship at the schools where you've been?
Sure, absolutely. So I was actually going to add a fourth.
Please.
I'll start by adding a fourth. The first thing I would do is develop a relationship with the CFO. I think the goal is when you walk in the CFO's office that they shouldn't see dollar sign, the dollars above your head, that they shouldn't think of you when you walk in as you're going to ask for money. I feel like I've achieved that. You know when you've achieved that, when you sit down and you have a conversation and you don't get that kind of pushback. What do you want? Is not the first question. I had as you've mentioned, I had a long-time career at LaSalle College. I was, and there I developed with the CFO what we call a collaborative IT department. So we had a very, very sound physical infrastructure, and the college was looking to do different types of partnerships to reduce the cost of education. So I had this idea, what if we just looked for all these small schools with IT departments that were very expensive, and we brought them together into one infrastructure. And so through that, we did develop 3 institutions together. We had LaSalle College, LaSalle Village, which was a continuing care retirement center, and Pine Manor College. And then, looking to expand that further. So, clearly a partnership, but it was because I came to him not while I was looking for money to do this. I started the conversation as a relationship, trying to support the goals of the institution, all coming out of the strategic plan. So, so I would say that's key, understanding the language that the CFO is really important. Having moved to Curry College, I've learned that the language of CFOs and the way that they analyze the financial state of the institution is different. And you have to adjust, and you have to speak to the institution in the way that they look at their finances. Coming to Curry, you know, as after a long-term CIO, first I initially thought she's going to want more money, so I came in saying I'm not going to ask for more money, you know, at least, you know. I didn't even say I just came in and said I'm not going to ask for more money. I'm actually going to look to reduce the costs, and we're going to work together. So I think developing that relationship is really important, and finding, you know, connections to them that you can have these regular relationships where we can kind of stop, you know, kind of let down the I want stuff and you don't want you know, and you're trying to save money for the college. So at Curry, our CFO likes Diet Coke, and I love Diet Coke. So we developed a relationship around Diet Coke, and he stores a nice stack of Diet Coke in his office for me. And I come by regularly, but I try to come by to pick up a Diet Coke to just say, how you doing? Or, hey, I noticed, you know, we helped you out over here. So it's developing the relationship so that when the time comes and as you work together, we meet every other week, that you can feel like you're on the same page and talking about, again, the strategic plan and how we're going to meet it. Do I need money to do my things? Yes. Do I know he's holding the purse strings? Yes. But I think you have to start out that we're a team and we're working together.
You know, seeing the three of us hit Bridgewater State at about the same point in time, and watching what happened in your two units from the, you know, across the street, what I saw is a lot of project orientation in terms of what the two of you. Is that an accurate description of how y'all build your relationship, Ray?
I'd actually like to start by saying that, and then I'll get to that point, that, you know, our relationship, I think, is one of friendship and partnership. And to your point, you know, we started around the same time in 2012 as assistant vice presidents at the same time. And, you know, we struck that bond up early. And we met on a regular basis and got to know each other and understand each other's areas. And to your point about projects, yes, I think something we did that's helped us build our partnership, I believe, is in IT, we established a formal project management office and a formal project management methodology for the institution that very early on started to provide value and benefits that I think clearly resonated across to the financial side of the house. And I think that's where it all started for us, is you know, as the AVP, I started that project management office and grew that and got to know each other. And I think as we go into the other questions, there'll be better examples of, you know, the results of our partnership and our relationship. But I'll let Doug kind of add to it.
Yeah, the whole idea of getting to know one another and establishing a working relationship, I think is essential. You know, we all think that that's a key to success. I'm very the language issue. My wife's an IT director, and so I have somebody who translates for me when needed. But also, and I think it's even more important, is that understanding how to speak to her about our own personal finances, so that she understands that perspective, allows me to see effective communication methods. So I have an advantage that way, and so I don't. You know, maybe you want to go out and get spouses, you know, to pick up to build that relationship or understand that communication. But it's really been an advantage. Ray and I really said this is important, and one of the things that I think both IT and finance have in common is that we have an institutional lens. In other words, we can see everything that's happening And that's kind of unique partnerships. The other functional areas, and you said it, Elmore, across the street. We're everywhere. We're across the street. We have to be everywhere because the resource allocation happens everywhere and the technology application happens everywhere. And there's strength in that partnership. And so thinking about, how you set IT goals, we kind of step back a little bit more from that to think about how do you set institutional goals, and how does that affect our functions and then to help spread that across the entire campus, because we have a view that's a common view.
Well, Debra, you talked about the strategic plan, and one thing I think would be interesting is as you move from one institution to another fairly recently, what I think I heard sort of behind the words there was that the strategic plans were very different. How did you adapt in that sense, in that relationship with the CFO, and I guess the president as well, as to you couldn't be a cookie cutter. Here's my bag of IT tricks. I'm going to pull them out.
Well, and in some ways, I thought through the interview process, they were looking for that. She would execute it successfully here. Take the same mix and execute it at Curry. But I did learn relatively quickly that that's impossible. It's impossible to do successfully, and that what they were looking for was other things, the long direction, some of the skill set I had around some things I've implemented through Salesforce and things like that. But yes, while the institutions both face the same struggles with retention and persistence and recruiting, the strategic direction looks at it two very different ways. And yes, there are times I want to say, at LaSalle we would have done it this way, and I have to hold my breath and say, at Curry we're going to do it this way, and I somewhat trust that I'm new to the institution, and the institution has operated a certain period of time, and while I've learned while things work here one way, they not necessarily successfully work in an institution that has a built-up culture.
And you've got to be nimble.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Doug, you might be able to add to this a little bit, but part of relationship building with a CFO and a CIO is, and I just want to say this, is that, the CIO needs to own the IT budget, needs to reduce the IT budget. And that's been our goal the past 4 years that I've been a CIO working with Doug in partnership. And I mean that he doesn't have to come to me and ask me to cut my budget. He doesn't have to come to me and say, Ray, we're under pressure, you need to do something about your budget. Through project management and through strategic planning and partnerships across the institution, I think we've established a pattern in IT at Bridgewater State University of reducing our costs every corner. And we'll share some of those examples soon, plus bringing in revenue to offset costs as well.
Let's pivot there for a moment. Bringing in revenue projects. We're talking about an entrepreneurial endeavor and this gets back to Debra's point of adapting, is talking about niches and what are the niches. But historically, IT and finance have been service. We'll do what you need.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about how you develop an entrepreneurial spirit to IT, and then Doug going to ask you about finance.
Well, it starts with an entrepreneurial spirit. You have to want to save money. For example, we all have roofs on our buildings where we work, right? And at Bridgewater State University, for example, we had AT&T leasing one of our roofs for cellular service in the region. And then they no longer needed our roofs, so we were able to put that out to bid, and Verizon ended up bidding on that. And that's revenue, that's raw revenue. All they do is they put their antennas up on the roof. By doing that, not only do we get revenue for the school, but we're also improved the Verizon service across the whole campus. So it was a win.
Wait, not improve, provide.
Right.
You couldn't get a Verizon phone to work.
Right. So that's one example. Another example is, we all have conduits on our campuses as well, right? And so, for example, we had some conduit that was unused that a certain cell provider wanted some access to that conduit, and through a process, we were able to secure a license agreement to use that conduit. So again, leveraging those assets to bring in money. One other example, and then I want to turn over to Doug, is, and Debra, is when I took over, the computer refresh process was dragging us down.
I remember the conversation you and I had about the budget's gonna go bust.
Gotta go bust. But I challenged the IT team and said, look, we have to look at this a different way, right? And so we actually were able to replace all of our desktops in 2 years that was expected to take 4 years, and save 50% of the cost by using microcomputers in place of the standard desktop computers. So technology costs are coming down.
Well,
And as an IT, as a CIO, you need to actually be paying attention to that and actually be dragging down the costs for the institution.
well, but something else that's critical there is part of that savings you devoted to giving faculty members the option of having an Apple that had never been available to them before, and you took a fight off of the table
Yeah.
by doing that.
Yeah, and that was really the first big project that Ray and I reluctantly entered into together. Our College of Education wanted to mandate that everyone junior level and above, and we have a huge teaching college, need to have an Apple. And we became an Apple distributor for 1 year to change the culture of the place, which had far-reaching implications, which I thought was, and again, the initial conversation when we met with the Apple reps, College of Business, all the stakeholders, I can remember Ray's exact comments was, we're not going to do, you know, they said, well, you can just, we have barcodes on all our machines, you can just scan them. And he said, this is not a project, you're coming in sideways, we're not going to do it. And of course, a week later, he developed the application, tested the scanners, and we were playing with it already. And we distributed 1,700 apples in 2 days, I think. Well, the grad school was the day before, so, and we had this, it was an Apple coming out party sort of thing, with all the stakeholders participating in that. And we only did it for the 1 year, and then turned it back over, go to your Apple store and get the computer, but it changed the culture of the place, which again impacted all the way down to faculty members. But it was really, the idea came from the College of Education, but the implication, who did the work was IT and finance and administration.
Entrepreneurship, Debra?
2 stories. So, and relating to the strategic plan as well. So at LaSalle, it was definitely this collaborative IT department was my idea, and I would say the CFO was very willing to indulge me to create some spreadsheet and model for how this would work, and the president was willing to say, okay, go and do it. So a lot of this comes from the organization being entrepreneurial and allowing you to think outside the box and potentially fail on something that's kind of big. So I would say that, you know, the institution has to have that culture of entrepreneurism and to really be effective and carry something through. I think it's necessary now. I think entrepreneurs, they're looking for ways, little niches in ways to, whether it's improving service or increasing revenue or cost savings. So at LaSalle, it was cost savings. Everything was cost saved because we're going to reduce the cost of education by reducing the costs, our own institutional costs, and that was going to be strategic. So that's why the focus was just pull in a cost, and whether partnership or whatever. So at Curry, it's different. We're looking to add innovation and technology to our programs that will distinguish us and make us different. So
Competitive in the niche.
yes, correct. So one of the areas I'm working very hard on right now is we have an IT program, and it's creating a connection between the IT department and the IT program. So we're working very hard on figuring, and this is all just kind of exploratory, I'm coming out with ideas, how about this, okay, let's try this, ways to really think about how Curry College could deliver an IT program that would be different than BC and Northeastern and all of these different programs. So one way that we're looking is is to really involve the students in the actual working of our department. And the question is, how much can we let them in before we start worrying about security and access and things like that? But we're willing to try. We're willing to try, and that's an area that's really much more on a different side, but it's the Curry way. So, I would say that.
That's great. Ray, let me ask you specifically, I know that you came in and became the project management guy, and then sell is probably too extreme a word, but where you now sell project management services across campuses to academic affairs and all other kinds of units. Did you stumble into that, or did you say, okay, here's my avenue to get everybody dependent on me?
No. Project management is critical. It's why I sleep at night. If we didn't have solid project management, I wouldn't be sleeping so well. So no, I came from UMass Medical School before going to Bridgewater State University and had a formal project management office that I worked with. 25 years in the private sector, I always worked with the project management office. Came to Bridgewater State and I was put in charge of project management, and I had one person. And that person wasn't certified, and you can understand that really there wasn't much project management going on formally. And it was being done on the backs of the functional directors in IT. They're not trained project managers, they're technical staff who grew up to be directors of their areas. And so they were failing miserably. It was very frustrating. And so I knew that we needed to spin up a project management methodology, a capability within the institution. I knew there would be value from it. And the interesting thing was the functional directors didn't want to let it go. They thought they were losing something. But I had to explain to them that, no, wait till you see the benefits of this. You're going to be able to focus on running your area and not having to manage projects. And so it was getting that first, I got that person certified as a project manager, and then getting that first project under our belt and showing the value of it. And the person saying, oh my God, I didn't have to schedule all those meetings. I didn't have to do all this work. And the results show for themselves. So there's that one win, and then you build on those wins. To your point, it's become institutionally ingrained, and you talked about it at the institutional level. You're right, what is an IT project? The majority of projects are institutional projects, and they have an IT component to them. And so what's important is that, but you need to bring structure and direction to those projects. And now, right now we have 40 projects running simultaneously through the project management office with 5 project managers. So in 7 years, that's where we find ourselves. And I think we're right at that sweet spot now.
In some cases that don't have anything to do with IT, in an obvious fashion,
right?
You've got folks working as project managers.
Well, the way it was working previously is we had consultants that we were paying premium price for to run our projects. And so staffing, we actually saved money by virtue of staffing up a project management office and formalizing the process. And so if you think about how, the CIOs are operating and our dependency upon consultants for whatever your shortfall in resource is, this is one that Ray identified, and we were very clear we can save money by going this direction, and we eventually whittled away all the consultants that were supporting us in project management. So that's one, I think, very important factor that he left out that's near and dear to my heart. The other thing is when Ray implemented a project management methodology, I was amongst the first IT liaisons for a division to give support to the concept. And then we started doing projects that were outside the scope of IT, like you said. And the biggest one, which any CFO at any of your institutions should be talking about this, is accounts receivable. We have to collect money. It's increasingly difficult with the price escalation, with the unmet need increase at our organizations. And that was becoming a problem at Bridgewater, and we spun up a 3-year project to work on that, which had very little to do with IT. It had much more to do with culture change. We had 50 stakeholders engaged in this because the ability to influence the students to behave differently, we thought we were helping the students by enabling them, by saying, you don't have to pay your bill now, we'll get you later. And that's not teaching them anything, number one. But there was this real fear about changing that culture in the institution, that we're going to hurt our students. We have not hurt our students, and they're now paying customers and being treated as such. We now have a financial responsibility agreement that got spun up through basically our registration process. But it's the financial contract between the student and the institution, which we never had before, which is it spells out all the terms and conditions. So I'm a huge supporter of project management.
So project management changed culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now you're approaching projects in a structured manner, having a charter that everybody understands, having a scope that's well-defined. And one of the interesting things that we have on cost, I mean, then you're doing a cost estimate up front, which makes budgeting and planning a lot easier. And if we have to defer something because we don't have the resources, it's easy to see a longer range plan. And the, you know, one of the interesting things that has happened all the time, I've seen it on every project that we've worked on together, is what we call scope creep. Because you're seeing it and it's like going, oh wow, we can do so much more. And we have to say, whoa, we have to finish with this first. and that tells you something about the process, that it's extremely valuable, because we want to expand upon it when we get into any one of these individual projects.
Great. Now, we haven't talked about online. We haven't talked about artificial intelligence or virtual reality or any of those things. Debra, where is this on your radar screen?
In my interview at Curry, they said, name 3 things that can change the institution. Online was number 1. So I recognize that that was an area that we needed to, that Curry needed to get more into the online delivery of education. So when I arrived, I recognized part of the somewhat problem was the recruiting and the systems around bringing on an online student. An online student is shopping lots of different institutions, and they say, they're on the phone, hey, this looks good, click a button, I want to get in. And if you can, during that interaction, enroll that student, you're going to be more successful. So I feel that it's the ease in reducing all of the bumps along the way. So I had familiarity with bringing in Salesforce. After like 2 months, I said, are we ready for Salesforce? Do you know me well enough? And they said, yep. So we went full on, brought Salesforce into our CE grad program. We partner with an external marketing firm, so they and they were struggling with us because they had these very sophisticated tools, and we were just sitting with spreadsheets. So being able, and we were just about to put out a new website. So being able to bring in Salesforce allowed us to make a connection between Salesforce and our external website, and with this external marketing company who's bringing us lead generation. So now we went from downloading spreadsheets to Banner and merging it with an email merge program for recruiting and students calling to sign up for classes to it's fully online through the Salesforce portal. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're able to now look at data, so you can look at a student record and you can see that the student touched our site, they went to this page, they clicked a link, they called us, we're tracking all that interactions, and we're now just building workflow and communication workflow based on what we see, and we're pretty close. We're almost a year into it. So we have the Einstein product, which is the artificial intelligence product on top of Salesforce. So the goal is that Einstein will actually, dig into our data and dig into all of the information that we have there and say, you're not getting to, you think you need to get back to them in 3 days, you really need to get back to them in 2 days. So that's what, that's the power of what Einstein does.
Technology changing culture.
Correct, and changing our own internal behavior. So that's what we're looking to do in this. It's become such a great model that we just signed a contract to go with our undergrad with Salesforce, so we'll have that up and going soon, and then move it out into retention. So and there's a lot of work to be done with data, with retention, with the tool set, which, you know, I think data is another area that we can strategically move this institution, because data tends to be centralized in us. It's going to be locked up in IT. And you got to knock on the door, and we might let you in and have some. We're not going to survive. My goal is to get the data out to the offices with the tools that they can do the analytics that they need to do, and that we're kind of sitting up here in a layer thinking about other things, like how we're going to bring this, how we're going to like assure that the data is clean and stable, and that if we need to partner with another institution, that we can push out this data over here so that we can be really agile from a high level. And then get out of this business of changing the little report and adding this field, and can you send it, change the letter, and you know, so.
Now, Ray, you put a augmented reality example on everybody's table here this morning. Do you want to talk about that and sort of how you're thinking about pushing new technologies out to the campus?
Well, the word that was mentioned was innovation, or being innovative. And we've coined a phrase at Bridgewater State University called technovation, this technology innovation. And with this technovation, we try to explore, IT tries to explore new technologies ahead of everybody else, and then slowly introduce those to people, introduce them to faculty, to students and staff. So what I passed out today is the IT outcomes publication. This is an annual report. It's actually less of an annual report of facts and figures, and it's more success stories of people, students, faculty, and staff implementing technology and having successful outcomes. And in particular, this is our augmented reality edition. So this is our foray into, okay, let's see what people are coming to me and say, what's this augmented reality thing? So well, let's try it ourselves and see what can be done. So everybody has a copy of the publication, and there's a letter in there explaining. You can open the HP Reveal app. I'm just going to do a quick demonstration. And it's augmented reality is like, think of Pokemon Go. You point your phone at something and you see something that's not really there. Or Harry Potter, you put it in the book and you see something that's not really there. So for example, every page in this publication has in this case, I'm demonstrating our Bijou bear coming to life and walking across the page. If you can open up to another page, here's a faculty member who got an award. And when you point at her picture, it plays a video in line as her talking about her award that she received. And so throughout this entire publication are all these little augmented reality implementations that are taking place. And it's for IT to be able to do that with technology and then share it with others. We've done virtual reality as well. We've done 360-degree videos at our commencement. This past year we broadcast live, not only just like we normally do, but we also did a 360-degree view using 360 technology, so that the commencement was also in 360 degrees. And we're really trying to make sure that we are innovative. And by the way, this costs $0 to do the augmented reality because it's a free software product. And so you want to be cost effective, you want to be innovative, and leading edge as much as you can be.
So he's not a heat sink?
No, and that's one of the amazing things that Ray, I would say one of the key skill sets that I see Ray apply all the time is contract negotiation. And maybe when you think of yourself as being a technical person, your technical knowledge of vendor relations, contract terms and conditions, the competitive market, that's a huge value. And Ray ends up negotiating something every year to come back. When we sit down for our initial budget meeting, he is always offering something back. And I'm always, it's been 3 years in a row now that I've been able to go to our senior staff meetings and say, everybody else around the table is lucky because he's giving us money to invest, so we don't have to think about maybe sunsetting something as quickly as we would have otherwise. We can give it another go, or we can try the next initiative in our strategic plan.
To build on what you're saying there, Doug, we're IT, and escalators. Costs are going to go up 3 to 5%, sometimes 7% year over year for software and technology. But you challenge the IT team to actually say to the vendors, look, we're having some tough times here in higher ed. What can you do for us? So even just renewing basic contracts, and we've gotten cost savings by just doing that. bigger contract negotiations. For example, our Comcast renewal came up, and we had an escalator. I inherited an escalator contract that was coming to an end. Well, we renegotiated that to the closing price, 5 years level funded, plus they wanted to get the Xfinity IPTV on campus. And so as part of the deal, they gave us money to build out that whole infrastructure, so we didn't have to spend a penny on doing that. So you just have to, if you don't ask, you won't get it. But it has to be a culture of, like you said, Doug, my goal is, we're working on budgeting right now for FY20, and my goal is to self-cut. It's like, and in today's day and age, the technology prices are coming down. We should be able to do more with less in today's day and age. And we're living proof of that ourselves.
And I'll offer something on the other side of it too, of which we've been struggling with our aging infrastructure, which is expensive and hard to negotiate price. And how much can you bite off, and in what time frames can you bite it off? I discovered, by virtue of talking to my fellow CFOs at the other state universities, every one of them had complaints about the resident students' experience with their technology in the rooms. And so we looked at our own data and found out our students love it. And then when I said, well, how are you paying for this? And are you charging the students for it? Or what's your mechanism? What CFOs, what are you doing? And they're saying, we have a building authority, we're a public institution. It's like, well, wow, we're waiting for the building authority to upgrade our stuff. I'm like, going, that's insane. They don't even know what technology is. They know what a building is, but they don't know what technology is. And so they're not sympathetic in any way that this is a need, and it's a demand by the students. And so we have, and I introduced this to everybody and all the other CFOs, we have a technology fee in the residence hall, which is very modest. And never had one complaint through our student accounts from any student of paying this technology fee, because most of them have some familiarity with paying a cable bill or something like that, and it's much less than that because we scale it. So I basically went back to Ray and said, hey Ray, I'm going to bump the technology fee a little bit because we can generate some funds to invest in the infrastructure that we didn't really have a fund to source otherwise. And based on all the data that we have and everything, the students will be more than willing to pay for this. It's an incremental increase. It's almost invisible from the student's perspective. But the value proposition for the student is so high that they are not going to care about paying for this. We increased the fee. We still have not got one concern or complaint from the students because they're appreciative of the value. And it's because these guys stay on top of it for the student experience.
It wasn't even adjusted for the consumer price index for 12 years. Now, think of the CFO-CIO relationship. Doug did that on his own. He came to me one day and said, Ray, I'm going to be putting forward a slight adjustment to the technology fee of this much for this reason. And I said, really? And it was for the network upgrade, network infrastructure upgrade. And that's amazing. I mean, to have somebody do that on our behalf without even asking, it's like, thank you.
But it shows that we understand each other's needs.
Yeah. Let's pivot to the group. Questions. Questions that you would like to put on the table.
Okay,
Yes,
questions.
please.
So we all have IT budgets, and all of us have more IT projects than we have a budget. How does governance play into how you guys work together to decide what are institutional priorities for IT? And obviously there's some budget. The CFOs always play a part in, yeah, you want to do these 10 things, we've got money for 8 of them, or whatever the case is. And then how do you decide in that mix what are the ones that are more important to the institution, and et cetera? How does governance play a role?
Well, project management is the key governance at Bridgewater State University in that area. When I first started, and it was very little project management, there were 400 project requests in the queue, and it was a black hole. And so, the project governance is important because what we established, as Doug referenced, is we established as part of the project management methodology that only projects can be requested by 2 people per division, called IT liaisons. The vice president and a delegate, or 2 delegates. So, and then we had to flush the 400, had to be honest. And then what happens is that now you created this governance funnel that the only project requests that are going to come to IT are going to come from a very high level in the division, right? And those liaisons need to scan the landscape in those areas and work with their areas to bring up the project requests. Now what's really important is, working with Doug, is we were able to align it with the budget forecasting process. So, and to the credit of our new administration, 3 years in now, our new president, we start budgeting in November, and then we close in early February for FY20. And so it's during that time that budget forecasting and project forecasting is done simultaneously, locked at the hip. All project requests need to have funding tied to them, and it has to tie back to the what you call strategic plan for the institution. Another credit to our new administration is we just came off a couple of years ago creating a 10-year strategic plan. Every division has a strategic plan. Every department has a strategic plan as well. We have a nested model. So it's all about governance, and it's all about clarity and focus. And so we don't get a lot of noise. And the departments and divisions have to fund their own things. IT doesn't have a central fund to actually fund your projects. You have that way, if the funding doesn't come through, we didn't say no, the funding didn't come through.
Debra, smaller school perspective.
So, so ours ties back to the strategic plan, so I would call that in the planning, you know, the committee group really oversees that, you know, and really controls that. I would say on a larger scale, you know, we're always looking back, like, what does the strategic plan say about this, and sometimes it's not, you know, it's not addressed, not gonna happen. But, you know, and that's when it comes to money, but we also have time that you can invest in projects. That we do more through, you know, what I consider an agile model where we actually, in that, people come in, they add a group, we get stakeholders together to advocate for their projects in a room together. So the registrar will say, I need this and that, there may be a small cost to it, it's oftentimes just time, financial aid, all the different stakeholders will come together. And oftentimes you'll find that the group will actually come together and decide amongst themselves what seems to be the most important, and then always, you know, tying it back to, is it going to drive revenue, is it going to drive students, new students, student satisfaction, things like that. And that oftentimes we found will push out those kind of I want projects, I need a button to do this. Yeah. Or it oftentimes even pushes out things that will be, you know, reduce, you know, the time to do a process slightly. Sometimes they oftentimes get pushed out because the things that come to the top are the things that the group agrees upon is what we need to do in the short term, and then along with some of that long-term planning that you need to go through.
And I'll add the three, I think, critical governance components are, there's 2 meetings of all the IT liaisons, which represents every divisional leadership. One is to do, really both of them are to do status and planning. So that happens twice a year leading up to the budget submittals. And then it's really in the beginning of the summer, before everybody goes away, there's a celebration of the project accomplishments that the entire community is invited to. That the IT, all the project managers present the projects that were completed, little hors d'oeuvres, social get-together at the right time of year to say, look at everything that we did, and now here's and also, hey, here's what we got coming up for next year. And so our IT function brings governance together in a very collaborative way. And those 2 things, I think, are, you know, there's 3 times we get together and we plan, we evaluate, and we celebrate.
How large is the Bridgewater State community, students, faculty, and staff?
We have 11,000 students, just short of 11,000, and we have 1,200, maybe just short of that, full-time.
How large is the IT shop?
60 IT professionals and 60 student workers.
Okay.
So we employ student workers as well, and then we also have 6 student interns and about a dozen, probably 6 grad assistants as well, and that's about our staff.
Comparable for Curry.
So we have 20 students, and then we have 15 full-time staff.
What's your
Honest.
role?
The enrollment is 3,600.
I have a question.
Yes, James, please.
So this may be geared more towards you, Debra, because of the school size. So Show Boston University is a smaller school. I would love to have the budget of a Boston University or another college. I'm not so lucky at this point. So with that said, if teachers through strategic planning said that within 2 years they'd like to implement VR or AR, there's a cost associated with that. how are you gonna present that to your CFO as something that's gonna be worth the expense? Because in the long term, students will benefit from that. How is your conversation gonna start in that regards?
I guess I would go back to, you know, what is it, you know, why are we doing this? Usually that's my question. So are we doing it because this is a skill set they need for, you know, their career, or, I mean, and where does it fit in the priority against all the other things that they're looking for? Like, if this is clearly going to benefit them in some long-term, in some way, and clearly going to draw people to the institution, and is far above other things in the mix, then, you know, then you need to start long ahead working with the CFO as far as what's the infrastructure we need to build to get VR. The other thing that sometimes I do is I will partner with other institutions. So if somebody has an infrastructure already who's close by or has already done this, I would reach out and see if there's a way to partner. I'm always looking on things where I'm so small and the costs are so high. I look to, you know, partner with them. So we're trying to do some projects in the nursing program. So I just went and met with Milton Hospital, the CIO of Milton Hospital. You know, seeing if there's a way we can partner that we don't have to buy the technology. Or if there's a way that we buy the technology, but we can at least, you know, that somebody else can use the technology. So, I mean, those would be strategies I would use when looking to do this. But I think I would start by saying why this is so important and what is this, you know, what is this tied to, you know, here.
But your conversation back to CSO, because of the
Yeah.
partnership, the relationship
Yeah.
you have. So
Yeah.
you're ensuring that, yes, there's a cost, but I'm able to offset cost by.
Yes, by some other way.
Okay.
Yes, or that I can show that this will recruit or retain additional students. And if I really believed it, I would go and I'd put it on a piece of paper and I would demonstrate how that could happen. You know, I'd put it in a spreadsheet, and I'd also start by saying, hey, CFO, want to see this cool thing? But you know, so that they understand what it is and why it is, and you know, I find CFOs are kind of curious about technology, especially new things, but these things, like something like that, just saying I need VR because of X, you know, day one, I don't want to spend that kind of money. But if you start slow and you build up, and looking for other partnerships that could somewhat offset the costs or make it a revenue generating, or some type of marketing splash that is really going to bring additional revenue. Is the ways that's how I would approach it on a project.
Thank you.
Is there a call from one of our dial-in participants? A question from one of our dial-in participants? Anyone there?
This is Tim Winters. This is Tim Winters at Free Northwest. I have a question that goes back to the project management office discussion. There was a discussion on creating the PMO for the institution, where I wasn't sure if that was dedicated to an IT project management office or incorporated facilities as well, and how you differentiate that. There's very different skill sets when you talk about project managers, when you talk about building or construction, renovations versus IT projects.
Yeah, Bridgewater State University, this is Ray. At Bridgewater State University, facilities, operations, they use their own project management, project managers, their own project methodology. Very similar to ours, but we did not, at our school, try to incorporate facilities and operations into our model. You know, we just didn't go there. They already have a fine-tuned system running in place themselves. So I hope that answers your question.
But what you did do was provide services to pretty much all of the rest of campus. Academic affairs, financial affairs, student affairs.
That's 100% accurate, yes. We cut across the whole institution, except for, the good catch, except for operations. They, like you said, that is a unique, you know, center.
And some of the reason for it being a unique center is our buildings are state buildings. There's a state building authority for our residence halls. There's what we call Division of Capital Asset Management for the other buildings. and there's a project management for large projects requirement with getting the state involved, because the state, quote unquote, owns the buildings, Bridgewater does not. And so that is a very distinct a project and procurement methodology that involves a complex state legal requirement. And so there's a real good reason our IT, you don't want to step into that quagmire.
But when it came to everything else, my view from across the street was that you found you had a skill set that had value add to the rest of the campus, and that you jumped in to that.
Project management is a unique skill set. It's a career opportunity for people, and it's a discipline, and you definitely need to have the right people. And it's something you shouldn't, if you're doing it on the backs of your IT staff, on the backs of your directors, again, non-professionals and project managers, you know, it's just not the best practice to do. It's hard because our sister institutions don't have project management offices in public higher ed in Massachusetts. Some of them don't. And they are doing it the way that they have to do it right now. But, you know, I keep reminding them that if you just take one person and your team and form that project management office, do that investment up front, plant that seed, it will pay dividends down the road. Like you said, there's financial cost savings, you know, a lot less cost overruns, you know exactly what you're dealing with.
Well, what I think what I saw as well is that it gets a broader spectrum of your IT staff engaged in these other units in a different way. There are folks of yours that know what's happening inside the business school, inside the aviation program, from my perspective, because they were project managers, and that was the process.
Yeah, that's so true. Just having those relationships, like you said, IT is this back, sometimes considered the back room operation. And but the successful IT professionals of the future, it's all about soft skills. It's all about business relationship management and helping people get more out of technology, right? Because technology is becoming more and more turnkey, cloud-based, and less do we need programmers in the back room just programming. We still need programmers, but really, one would argue, you know, almost 70% of the IT team needs to be forward-facing nowadays, right? And engaging a different skill set and adding value that way.
Yes.
I'll make a comment. I want to thank you all because it's fascinating and the things that you're doing are really amazing. To Ray's point, coming from a vendor perspective, and from my mother, what my mother taught me, closed mouths don't get fed. So you guys should always be negotiating and always be getting something more each year, and it'll happen. I mean, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal some years ago that Ohio State negotiated with the energy company to get internships and scholarship dollars, franchises, Starbucks on campus, right? So you have a captive audience for companies, and you can balance that, right? But they want it. And free software, I mean, if the software is also getting into the students' hands and it's worthwhile, like the CRM software, which every person is probably going to need to know in 5 years, if not now, then we're impacting the academic side. So that's where my questions are going to come from. You just made a great point, right? Those soft skills, right? So you're doing that right now. You're teaching and empowering your people, and you both have students working within your groups. How is what you're doing in the real world of works impacting the curriculum and the academic programming for IT or for business or project management? Or do you see that happening?
For me, it's going to be a little slower than I'd like it to be. Yes, like I kind of, I work the curriculum out. But so I'm doing it through my own way that I can do right now, which is I have 20 students who work for me, and I have at least 3 interns who work for me. So we'll take Salesforce. So all the interns who worked for us last term had to go through the first Salesforce administration
Just increase those future salaries by $2,000.
Right. And I sat with them and I said, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but this will make you more marketable when you graduate. This is just part of the MTS internship program. And I need people to be able to help us with Salesforce. So you'll thank me in the end. So they did that. And then, so we, like I said, there are a lot of vendors have these products out there. So Tableau also, that's another one. So we have a student who came in, he had Tableau in his resume. I said, how much do you know? And he, I know a little bit. And I'm like, great, you're going to be our new Tableau expert. And, so while I can't like build this into the curriculum today, I'm trying to design this by being the example and showing what these skill set these students need, so that when they get out, that that they are marketable, and curriculum will follow. Yeah, and I'm working with the provost, and he said, you just keep doing what you're doing over there, and here's another partnership, and I'm going to keep moving them towards you, and we're going to find a way to make this relationship work. And I meet with the head of the department every month, and we talk about changes, and it's hard. Look, I'm not a curriculum expert, and so I have a lot to learn. So, but yes, that is very important. That's an area. But that my own strategy, and has somewhat always been my career, is just get people's confidence, go and do the thing that you know is right, and people will figure out how to rally around that. So that's what I'm doing there. You have a much more kind of structured.
There's a lot in this space. For example, we partnered with the College of Science and Math recently on a information security forensics program. And so the dean of that college reached out, and we meet regularly, and so we connected with each other, and we're spinning up that program, for example. I think it's been announced recently that we're doing a photonics engineering lab at Bridgewater State University through a grant in partnership, I think, with MIT and who else is it?
Stonehill.
And Stonehill. And those are examples of how, like IT is making sure we're connected to the business, and that's just one example. We partner very closely with Dean Elmore's College of Business as well. This was created by student interns. On the back are all the student interns' names. And you think about it, the graphic designer, for example, what better thing to go out and do a job interview, and then this is what I did, it's all project-based. Photographer as well as the videographers is in there as well. So we try to make sure we include the students there. And the one pride point is hiring the students. And so, we hired, I think, 3 recent graduates into IT who were student workers for 3 or 4 years. And then when the opportunity arose through internal cost savings, we were able to get positions. So we've added 7 positions in 7 years in IT when we were stagnant with no headcount increases before that. And that was without increasing any cost to the institution. There were retirements, and we look at, when someone retires, we look at the position and say, wait a minute, that was a position from 10 years ago when IT was hands on the keyboard a lot more, right? And so there's an opportunity, we've used our creative opportunities to actually bring in additional headcount, and that gave us the opportunity to hire students who were student workers.
Which is saving money because there's no cost for the hiring process, right?
Right, exactly.
It costs money, right? People and time and stuff.
Entry-level salaries plus a great career growth opportunity for them. So those are some examples. Do you want to add to it?
So we need to be mindful of time. We could go on forever, and this is wonderfully good. And I'm going to turn things to Nuno to sort of summarize and move us on out of here on time.
Sure, sounds good. I was looking at a list of what some other universities have done in terms of being innovative with revenues and cost cutting. I got to tell you, they've got nothing on you. So, really good examples of ways to cut costs and increase revenues. Thank you so much for coming and for sharing your experiences with us. And thank you to the group for also coming. I think the weather had a little bit of an impact in terms of physical presence, but we want to also thank folks on the phone for calling in. We will be sending out a feedback form. So if there's any topic that is of value or would be of value, or maybe you want to talk more about this topic next time, please don't hesitate to say so. If there's an introduction that we can make to another CIO, if you heard something that you liked and you want us to make an introduction to one of the panelists or anyone else in the group, please don't, if it's okay with the panelists. don't hesitate. And we certainly encourage collaborations, as you said, Deborah, and as you gave some examples between schools. It's a tough time for universities, so, it's time to work together. So, that's basically it. Once again, we thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the committee as well. And thank you, folks on the phone.
Thank you online, folks.